Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through your 2015 Cruiser RV 30RLS Viewfinder. We are just going to start off the back unit. If you notice up top, you're pre-mounted for an observation camera. If you'd like to get set up with that, of course, you can just contact your parts department. Coming down right below here, you do get your standard 30 amp connection. You just line it up exactly like it shows, just kind of like a standard house outlet. Plug it into place. You're good to go. If you follow that cord back, you essentially have the same female end on this side. Plugs into this like so. Most campsites should have this. You can plug right on in, but let's say you have the unit at home and you want to run your fridge, or you only have 15 amp service, which is your standard household outlet. We do include that 15 amp park adapter. Just keep it in mind whenever you are using 15 amps of power, you can't run your air conditioner. Realistically, it's just to run your fridge and your lights. Also located at the back is going to be your city water connection. So if you're out of site with service, you just thread a garden hose in there, turn it on, pressurizes all those lines without the need to run your water pump. Cable satellite hookups. You're going to notice this guy here on your rear bumper gets you a 2-inch hitch receiver. Just keep it in mind that realistically is just good for a bike rack, and even not a very large bike rack. You're not going to be wanting to put more than 2 bikes on there unless you do reinforce that back bumper. Otherwise, you do run the risk of breaking it off. You got a little mount there in case you want to mount an outside barbecue. Then you got your spare tire, and then inside bumper tube itself, you can undo the cap. It's typically where you're going to store your sewer hose. It's the cleanest, best place to keep it in our opinion. Coming down the driver's side of the unit, it's not a whole lot until you get about halfway down. Get to your sewer hookup, take that cap, take it off. You got a gray and a black. You always want to empty the black first. It's going to be your dirtiest water, filled from your toilets. And then you come behind that with your gray valve. Typically a little cleaner water, filled from your sinks and your shower. Again, a little more ahead, get the first side to your storage compartment. It goes right through to the other side. On this side here, this is where you're going to find your standard starter kit. It comes with a 10-foot sewer hose, 15-foot water hose, some other miscellaneous goodies, including that 15 amp torque adapter. Then you got a couple different manual overrides here for those stabilizer jacks. And then in here, you do get an extra little outside storage spot. Put anything less fragile, I guess. And then right at the front, you got inside that box there, you do have your battery. And then most of the time, your 2 propane tanks, you can just get access to them by loosening off the tabs, lifting it up like so. But just for the purpose of the video, I'll slide it right out of the way. 2 20-pound tanks, just like home, like any standard barbecue, except you got your regulator right at the front. And on that, you have your selector valve. With it pointed this way, you're obviously drawing off this tank. Counterclockwise, like any standard propane tank. To open up the flow of propane, if this tank were to go dry, you just have to close it off, switch it over to the other side, and then you can then start drawing off that tank. Inside here is again just the other side of that storage compartment. Little light on the wall there. Now you do have 2 sets of stabilizer jacks on this unit. The 2 that I recommend using are the ones that are hooked up to these switches here. You got a switch there, switch in the back. They both work the same way. Push over the button. Jacks are going to start making their way down. Once the jacks do contact the ground, sometimes they can go different paces. Keep that in mind too, because it's not in your system. Just let it do its thing. And once both feet do contact the ground, you hear the motor wind up and you can let off the button. Like I said, sometimes they go down at different times. It's the way it is. Once you hear the motors wind up like that, you know you're at your extension. Now, of course, it's going to be crucial to get your unit level before doing this, because they are stabilizing jacks. They're not leveling jacks. Now, when you do go to operate the other jacks, they have what's called an auto level feature. Now, that's just going to level you front and rear. Keep in mind, you're still going to have to set your side-to-side movement by putting blocks underneath the tires. So keep that in mind whenever you do use it. For retraction, it's the same thing. Hold the retract button. Once you keep contact the bottom of the trailer, the motor will automatically cut out. notice your first entryway door on the front here. That is for your bedroom. We're going to be entering through the back today, though. You got your service port for your hot water heater. Loosen off that tap. This will pop right out of place. You got your 1.1/8" drain bolt down here, right down here at the bottom. Threads into place like so. That's going to be how you drain your hot water tank. Whenever you first get to your campsite, you will want to give this pressure relief valve a pull. There should be a shot of water coming out of there, letting you know that the tank is full and safe to fire up. It's obviously empty right now just due to because we winterize it for the customer. I'm going to go over a reset procedure inside. The button I'm referred to is just right there. Lining up the two tabs on the bottom, push into place, pull this tab over, flip it down. Right down below the floor here, you do get your 2 low point drains right here. So if you don't want water going stale or stagnant because you're leaving the unit for a while, or once you're done your winterization process, it's always a good idea to open those up and allow most of the antifreeze out of the system. That's where you do so. Furnace exhaust, whenever your furnace is running, this will be blowing out hot air, so just be mindful of that. And above my head here, you get your range hood flap. Whenever you're camping, making sure you undo that flap so that your range hood can evacuate those fumes as you're taking it. But whenever you're traveling, you're not using it, it's always a good idea to snap it into place. It's going to stop any excess dust from getting inside the unit and also help with keeping critters out. Fridge service port, not much you need to worry about there. A couple plugins on the outside. And then right here, this is the fresh tank fill. So you could either siphon water in there, put your garden hose in there, turn it on, and that's what fills up your fresh tank. That's what the water pump draws off of. The drain for that is just right down below the floor here. It's another one of those valves. Twisting and turning it allows all the water that's inside the tank to drain itself out. Your rear set of stabilizer gas is right here, the control for that. Take your assist handle, push it up, put it in 90 degrees, it's going to lock into place. You can then pull down your stairs. Just pull them towards you, flip the last one down. You then take a step on inside. First thing you notice, off on your left is going to be that fire extinguisher, which is just like home, so you can shoot. And now your main kind of control area is all right here. So first things first, you got some cabin lights. Far left one turns on all the main living space lights. Then you got some exterior lights and some other accent lights you can turn on, as well as a porch light. You got your monitor panel system, so pushing the button tells you the corresponding level of each tank. Water pump, turning that on, so it draws out of your fresh tank. Then you got your LP gas water heater option. Hit that switch on. Of course, because the water heater is gas, you're going to want to make sure the system's purged first and your tanks are on. I'm going to go over purging once we do get to your stove. But turning this switch on, water heater tries lighting itself 3 times. If on the 3rd try it doesn't light, this DSI fault light's going to come on. At that point, you do just have to go outside, hit that reset button I showed you earlier, and try turning this back on. And you should always try a second time whenever it comes to lighting something on propane. Then you get your 2 slide out buttons. Now, of course, for that back slide, it's going to be pretty hard to check, but before you ever run either of your slide outs, it's always a good measure to give it a good visual inspection inside and out. Just making sure that there's nothing that's shifted during travel that's going to get stuck between the slide out and the wall. And just on the outside, making sure you have enough room. And now with this unit, it's also very crucial. You are taking note of the way this chair is. The chair doesn't have to be pretty much tucked as close to the wall as possible for the slide out to be able to travel in and out freely. Again, it's going to be very important that you check before trying to run your slide out that this didn't shift at all during travel, or you forgot to move it, whatever it happens to be. So again, just making sure that you got that laid out of the way. You can then hit the out button. The slide out's going to automatically start making its way out. Once that slide out is at its full extension, you're going to hear the motors wind up and click. And the same thing is going to go for your back, your front slide. You're always going to want to run the slide outs at separate times as well. Never trying to do both at the same time. Again, now you do your bedroom slide. And you're all done. Now you got your battery disconnect switch here with the tape especially numbered at the top. When you push the battery switch is pushed in, the batteries is disconnected. When you pull the switch out, the batteries are connected. power, your stereo, pretty much just like home. Not much to show you there. You got your little outside or little fireplace, power button on the far right. The button next to it does your different light settings. The button right in the middle will get you to your heat setting. At that point, you're pushing it once for hot. The more you press it, you'll see the temperature going up or down on the screen there. And then you got your different light settings you can turn on, as well as the different effects for the lights. Power button on the far right to turn that off. You get your LCI control panel here. Now that's how you run that second set of stabilizer jacks. Works the same way as the other ones I showed you. Hit the leveling button. Typically you can hit auto level. It'll automatically level the unit. Sometimes you might have to even manually put them out. The system is a little funny that way, but that's how you would use that. Up top, TV, again, pretty much just like home. Not much I'm going to show you there. You got a plug-in over here, and then of course, because we're in an RV, this has a travel style TV mount, so it's locked unless you pull down on this. That'll allow you to unfold it out of the wall, swivel it around to wherever you find the best viewing situation. Right here, you're going to notice this little red button. Turning that on turns the antenna on in the roof. Now that also includes radio frequency and cell phone frequency, so I typically recommend leaving it on whenever you're camping, but whenever you're not using the unit, just turning it off, as it does draw battery power. Get that back snapped into place, especially if you're traveling. That way it doesn't go anywhere. You're going to have tons of storage throughout this unit whenever you're using any of it. Just, of course, being mindful of drains, water lines, and things like that. You're not going to be wanting to affect any of that. All the blinds in the unit do work the same way. They just kind of sit where you leave them. Right here, got your couch, dinette. The dinette does fold down into a bed. You're just having to remove the feet from underneath the table, sit your tabletop on its desired ledge, and then you can take your back cushions, fill in the center, and you'd have yourself another bed. Right over here, you got your Atwood TV. Turning the power button on turns itself on. When you hit your mode, you check, you can, once we give it a second to load, just let it beep and do its thing. If you hold the mode button, it'll bring you over to auto. Whenever you're in auto, it'll search for shore power. Once shore power is taken away, it'll automatically switch over to gas. Now it's going to be also, again, very important that you have your gas on already and you have the system purged, because if you don't and you just walked away, it might not light the first time, and then your fridge won't be getting cold, and if you have stuff in there, it'll probably go bad. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, if you do want it to run solely on gas, you just have to hold that mode button again, and it'll take you over to gas, and now the fridge is solely running off gas. Again, push and hold the mode button, take you off gas, put you on auto. It's going to first search for AC power. And then you got your temperature control. So if you push and hold it, it's going to take you down to the bars. Obviously, with the bars all the way on, it's going to be its coldest setting. With only one bar showing, it's going to be the warmest setting. Fridge and freezer combo, of course. Push and hold the power button to turn it off. Right down below, you got your fuse and breaker panel. Whenever breaker trips, it'll sit in the middle, so you just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. All your corresponding fuses on the right. You got your main GFI plug right here in the kitchen. So if you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, this would be the first place I'd look. You got test on the right, reset on the left. If you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, just make sure this isn't tripped. 90% of the plugs do run through it. Again, they can trip for the funniest reasons, so just double check that that isn't tripped. Now, because this unit is equipped with propane, you got your LP detector right here near the ground. If this guy ever starts going off, don't panic. Just turn off the main supply at the front of the unit, open up some windows and vents, and get some fresh oxygen inside of here. Now, I brought up propane earlier, talking about purging. So whenever you turn the system off at the front, especially if you disconnect one of the bottles that allows air into the system, once air makes its way in, it does have to be purged out. Quickest, simplest way to do that is just by firing up your stove. I tell every customer, fire up your stove as soon as you get to your campsite. It just makes sure that that propane flows that much easier when you do try to fire up your fridge, furnace, or a water heater, because those will only try lighting themselves a couple times before they throw a fault code at you. because it doesn't sense a flame because there's no gas there yet. So again, just come to your stove, turn it to the high/light option. And of course, being safe whenever doing so, it is a gas stove. So if you were to have a buildup of gas starting and you go to hit an ignition source, there could be a small combustion. If your face is nearby, you might lose some eyebrows and eyelashes. Sounds like a bad time to me, so just be safe whenever you're doing it. If you're ever running this gas valve on, making sure you have a lighter handy ready to go. That way, again, you don't get that buildup of gas. It's going to light up pretty quick today just because I had the system running earlier. Sometimes it can take a few minutes, so just be patient with it. As you can see, it does fire right on up once the system is already purged. Same thing goes for the oven. Turn this knob over to the pilot option, push and hold the knob in, take your lighter down below, light it, hold it around that gas orifice. You're going to see that pilot lights. Now that pilot can stay lit and hold its own without you pressing in on the button, you can turn it up to your desired temperature and it does fire right on up. Above your head, you got your air conditioner. Behind this tab, if you pull in these tabs, that'll allow this to pop down. There's that little screen in there. It's always a good idea to make sure you clean that every once in a while. It is the intake screen. It sucks all its air through there, so it gets dusty periodically. The cleaner you keep it, the better the flow will stay. And then you have a couple options when you are running the air conditioner. You can run it with these louvers open, in which case it's called a quick dump, to dump all its air into this main living space. Or you can close them off and move its air throughout using the ceiling ducting. What I recommend doing is when you first get to your campsite, it's probably going to be pretty steamy inside of here. Open up this vent, cool off this main living space. Once the living space is bearable, you can then close them off and push its air throughout. It's just going to be that much easier to do if this space is already cold. It's sucking up that cold air and moving it throughout now. Just helps keep things that much more efficient. Coming into the back hallway, you got your thermostat on your wall. This is the main thermostat for the unit. Push the power button once it illuminates itself. Push it again. That's going to get you into your fan setting. I always recommend running that fan on auto. It makes the fan an on-demand system, so it'll kick in and out as needed depending on what you have your room set to and what you have the temperature at. Let's say you wanted to move around air manually without using the air conditioning. You can either run that on either... I gotta go back to it. You can either run that on either high or low. You're gonna see sometimes it does take a few tries to click the buttons here. There you go. Again, it's gonna be a little finicky using sometimes. But I'm going to recommend using that auto setting. Just, it's the most efficient. And when you go to fire up your furnace, it makes things that much easier. There you go. Back into auto, you hit the cool setting. Room's saying it's 72. We have it set to 22, which you would never get inside of here, especially on a hot day. So if you set that to a more reasonable temperature of like 65, once the room reaches 65, it would automatically cut out the air conditioner. Power button one more time, that's going to kill your air conditioner, fire up your furnace. Your furnace only has one fan speed, it moves all its air through the floor portals you have throughout the unit. And after you turn your furnace off after being on, it does run for an additional 3 minutes to allow itself time to cool down. Get to the bathroom, open up the door, light switch is on its own center button. Other than that, it's pretty standard bathroom. Shower, sink, all that good stuff. You get access into the main bedroom as well, which is kind of nice. And you have all this storage on the left for clothes or whatever else you got to pack. And now we're into the main bedroom space. Again, the lights are going to be on their own center push buttons once I find them. Light switch somewhere in here. I am just missing it. Anyways, this one, that one. Let me just. There's a light switch here I'm not finding. Could possibly, I'm going to look into that, and I will leave detailed instructions on that. But now that we are in the bedroom, it's pretty standard. Your bedroom, pick up at the foot of the bed. It does give you a big extra storage space inside of there. Just being mindful of that big box of electricalness on the right. You're not going to be wanting to pile anything against that, bumping those wires around too much. On the wall, you do get a little handheld fan controller for your max air fan. It's also got the manual controls right on it. You got your fire exit for the unit right here. Taking that red tab, pulling it, the screen's gonna pop right out of place. At that point, you can take your handle, pick it up, push it, hop on out of the unit. Of course, trying to go feet first, but if there is a fire, just getting out as quickly as possible is pretty important. Other than that, that is it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.